Hi, and welcome to the SaVeg podcast.
I'm Rose, also known as Cheap Lazy Vegan on YouTube.
And I'm Daniel, one of your favorite guest stars on Cheap Lazy Vegan's YouTube channel.
We're two friends who love to talk about the latest trending topics.
So get comfortable and join us while we give our SaVeg take on just about everything.
You are currently listening to the previous episode of this podcast, but if you would like to listen to this week's episode and get some exclusive content, go over to patreon.com/thesavagepodcast. Hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back to another episode of the SaVeg Podcast.
Yes, we are back with our regular program.
Back with the regular programming. We did miss last week. We do apologize.
Yeah.
Lots going on.
Just life. You know, I mean, we've both been busy. Rose has been MIA out of the country.
I was in Mexico City scouting for a future vegan food tour.
Oh.
Speaking of vegan food tours, Daniel, would you like to tell people about our camping trip?
Oh, yeah. So, guys, in August next year, we are doing a Canadian Rockies trip, which is, you're going to cover all the greatest spots in the Rockies, which is obviously Banff, Lake Louise. Google them, guys. They're beautiful spots. There's going to be camping, there's going to be hiking, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So yeah, check out the link in the show notes or the description, and you can join us there. There are only 8 spots left, so if you want to come along on a Canadian Rockies camping and hiking trip, come along.
Yeah, it's going to be fun.
Anyway, guys, so before we jump into the depressingness of this episode, we do have a couple of shout outs for our Patreon. So if you guys don't know Patreon, we have a Patreon.
We do.
Where we post exclusive content every single month, and every episode you get earlier than everybody else, and it's ad free, and you also get a shout out at the beginning of the episode. So join us on Patreon. Yeah. So we'd like to say thank you to
and Anna.
Anya
or Anya?
Anja? We don't know how to say the name. I think it's Anya,
sorry.
right?
I think so.
And Julia, thank you guys so much for joining.
Yay. Well, thanks so much for that, Rose. Getting all our shameless plugs out of the way first.
Exactly. Shameless plugs are done now.
Exactly.
Now to
the guys.
So the election happened.
Yes. The election actually happened last week. So
it happened last week, November 5th. Was the day we all cried.
It was. It's like one of those things, and it's funny. I was reflecting because we have our separate group chat going on, and I was reflecting on when Trump got elected last time, and I remember that it all happened in the same year. It was like Brexit, Trump, and I was like, oh my god, what the fuck is happening with the world? This is insane. And it's like we're reliving that moment.
I think it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Which is, I think that's what's scary to me. So Trump won. Clearly the polls, because every poll and everything was showing that it was going to be a Kamala win by a landslide. So clearly I'm never trusting polls ever again. Yeah. Because I think the similar thing happened when Hillary lost. Right. I think a lot of people thought there's no way Donald Trump is going to win. And based on the polling data, they were like, yeah, it's going to be Hillary, but clearly not. Yeah. So never trusting polls ever again.
It's like that. I always wonder how they do them. I guess that they poll people.
Yeah. It must be skewed somehow.
Yeah.
Because there's just no way.
And maybe more Democratic people come out to the polls.
This is what I'm thinking.
Yeah. And then actual for voting, it's a lot of the.
This is what I'm thinking.
A lot of the Trumpers.
Oh God, I can't.
The Donald Trumpers.
So we've had the week to reflect. Oh. So what do you think, Daniel?
Guys, again, I don't know. I don't like him as a person. Yes. First of all, I think that he is a train wreck. I mean, it's good TV and it's good to watch, but in terms of there's a couple things I want to reflect on. Number one that I reflected on is that's your figurehead of your country. That is who is representing your country. That is who you have voted.
Yes, majority vote, by the way.
Exactly.
It was a popular vote because at least with Hillary, he won the electoral college, but she won the popular vote.
Yes.
Whereas this time, he won everything.
Do you think that a part of it was because they obviously I think Joe Biden wouldn't have done any better. But you know how they flip them? They flip them out?
Yes.
And then do you think because she hadn't had enough time to build her campaign and all that kind of stuff, and she just
I have a few theories.
Okay.
As to why, in hindsight, because again, I didn't really see this coming, but again, that's on me for believing the polls. Yeah. But in hindsight, I've had the week to reflect, and I do agree with some people saying certain things about how they ran the campaign. Yeah. So firstly, I don't know if it's because they flipped it too quickly. I do think I'm sorry to say this, and this depresses me, but I think the fact that she's a woman had a lot to do with it, had something to do with it. The fact that she's a black woman had something to do with it, because I don't think we give enough credit to the fact that America is still very racist.
Right.
And still very sexist. And the sexism is going even further now. Like,
yeah,
we're seeing like a increase in sexism in the last however many years. So I do think that has something to do with it. I don't think that's the whole picture. Secondly, I do think because, you know, people are talking about how the economy is bad, cost of living, and all of these things. And I don't believe that you should blame the current administration for all of the downfalls of the economy, especially when the current administration has been in office for 4 years. And economy is not something that changes that quickly, super fast, like whatever. Right. And also Biden got like the, what do you call it? The COVID economy, essentially.
Yeah.
So I think because people are struggling, and let's just note the fact that everyone is struggling in this world. Okay. Canada, struggling.
Yeah.
You know, economy is bad. In the UK, it's fucking bad.
Yeah.
So it's not just the States. So when people are like, oh, Biden fucked over the economy, it's not just the States.
It's a global,
everywhere,
we're in a global, like,
exactly,
a crisis.
Exactly. So it's not just like, oh, the president of the United States, this is the fault of the, you know, the administration.
Yeah.
It's a big mix of many different factors.
Well, and the thing is with the economy, when thinking just about the economy right now, there's so many factors at play within an economy, especially economy like the size of the US, right? And to try to pinpoint, like, we're seeing, and we saw this in a big part of you know, the last couple of years where, and we've talked about this in the podcast so many times, but like talked about like these big corporations doing mass layoffs. And part of the problem, and it's not necessarily the problem, but we kind of talked about this as well, about getting into like late stage capitalism, where you have a lot of these big corporations, like huge companies that have these unrealistic growth targets, right? They are always like, you know, when you're a startup, realistically, you could do like 200% growth. You could do huge amounts of growth for a while. Once you start to become a mature business, right? And you get into these like $1 billion revenue businesses, it's like, in order for you to even grow, let's say 5%, the amount that means in revenue compared to like a small company growing 5%, it's just crazy, right? Like, right. It's like you cannot sustain this. So companies look at it as one of two ways. Okay, well, we're going to grow our profit or we're going to cut things. And that's what's been happening kind of globally. And right. I think honestly, like, and again, I know there's many factors in play in the economy, but I think a lot of the problems that we're facing right now is because of a lot of corporations trying to squeeze every single dollar they can. And what they're doing is mass layoffs. And we've seen this happen. And then of course, if you have mass layoffs, that's going to detrimentally impact the global, like the economy in the area. Also, on top of that, you have this concept. Well, I don't want to say concept, but this huge amount of inflation. Now, a lot of it, they're blaming the government. They're saying, oh, the government's doing X, Y, Z. Well, you can see it. Like, a company will be, okay, well, on this particular product that we're selling, we always have like a 10% profit margin. So even if our costs go up, we're going to build, again, another 10% on top of our increased costs. So as a consumer, and as we're all feeling this, the cost of everything is getting super, super expensive. Those of us that have kept our jobs during massive layoffs and all this sort of thing are like clinging on to them, you know what I mean? And being like, you know, we don't know. It's so much uncertainty. So combine that with an election, and it's like people are starting to feel desperate, right? Like they're like, they're feeling desperate, and they're again misguided to say, okay, well, what is the government going to do about it? How is Donald Trump administration going to stop these huge corporations from doing layoffs? Like, how are they going to put controls in place around how much they're allowed to build in inflation? You know, like these are the things that are actually impacting us. Like,
So exactly. So like people are frustrated, like you said. Yeah. And I think what happens, and it's always kind of like what happened in, I guess, historically, is when the current government is, people are like, let's say people are struggling within like inflation, because of inflation, economy. Yeah. They rightfully or wrongfully so will blame the current administration, and they think, oh, it's the current administration's fault. Therefore, what happens often is that they will end up voting for the other party that isn't the current administration, because again, rightfully or wrongfully so, whether or not they know the policies, which, let's face it, the average voter does not understand politics, and they don't actually focus on the policies. They vote based on emotion and based on like, oh, current policy, current administration, I'm struggling, so therefore the other administration must do better. Yeah. So then I think this is what happened. And I think the downfall of Kamala Harris, it could be because they switched,
too soon, or
they
not
switched
too
soon to the election.
Yeah.
Too close to the election. But I think it's also because she didn't differentiate herself enough from Joe Biden. It was basically like, because she's in the Joe Biden administration.
Yeah.
So really, like, maybe she couldn't do so much, or she felt that she couldn't do something so different from the Biden administration. Because I remember I did see some kind of interview before the election where somebody was like, well, what would you do differently from the Joe Biden administration? And she basically was like, I wouldn't do anything differently. And that's a problem, right? Because when people want change, when people feel like they need change, you need to at least promise them. Again, it's all fucking politics. It's all fucking, half of them are lies.
Yeah.
Okay. But you need to at least promise them that you're going to have some kind of changes.
Yeah.
But if it's the same administration as the Biden administration, and I think part of it is maybe the fault is that they didn't change up the person. Like they could have had a different Democrat. You know, they could have had someone like fucking Bernie Sanders, for example. But no, they just basically went from president and then vice president. So it's kind of like, you know, people feel like nothing really is going to change. And when people are desperate for change, you got to promise them some kind of change. And I do think Trump ran the campaign. I think it's, again, I don't agree with any of his stuff, but I do think he ran the campaign based on a change. So I think that's partly why he got elected. So now, do I think he's going to be better for the economy? Maybe for rich people, maybe for corporations, maybe for Elon Musk. Do I think he's going to be better for the economy, for average or low income families? Fuck no. No. It is absolutely ridiculous. Why this frustrates me. Okay. The fact is that I look at, like, I also, of course, I don't like Donald Trump as a person, but I look at the Republican Party. Okay. There's a reason why giant corporations, National Rifle Association, Elon Musk, there's a reason why these gigantic corporations and billionaires almost unanimously love the Republican Party, because they look out for corporate interests and rich billionaires. This is why, historically speaking, rich people love Republican Party, because they will protect corporate taxes or decrease corporate taxes. And for smaller businesses, even, or like average people, they don't look out for average people. No. And that's across the board. That has always been the case, which is why if you look at countries with a high social safety net, where people are happier generally, with a strong middle class, they are never a super conservative country. Yep. Like, it is not rocket science, people. They are not looking for your best interests.
It's crazy though, because like you think about, like, especially when you can take case studies and examples of other economies and other countries that do have, like, I mean, you look at Scandinavia, all of those kind of places, like, it's just a no-brainer. But I mean, when it comes to the US, I feel like nothing is a no-brainer to them, because even look at, like, another perfect example is around gun legislation and everything like that, and how there's examples that exist around the world of people that have increased legislation and what it's done for gun violence. And yet you have multiple case studies and yet it won't happen. And I feel like it's the same for whatever reason. You know, and I it does suck, because I do feel like a lot of the people that voted for the change, or voted for this change, because a lot of them are going to be low income earners, and they're thinking that it's going to help them in some kind of way, shape, or form, where, well, Donald Trump is talking about, like, increased privatization of healthcare, increase, like, all of this kind of stuff. Like, that's not helping the vast majority. And, like, again, you have to remember, like, most of the people in the US, like, and this is true of a lot of countries, but, like, you might have, like, a high middle class, but the middle class is shrinking, and you have this increasing number of individuals that are, like, struggling to make ends meet, paycheck to paycheck. And now you're saying, hey, you know what? We're going to give tax breaks to the corporations. Well, and at the same time, those corporations are going to turn around and say, you know what, Rose, I'm sorry, but we can't afford to pay these healthcare plans anymore because it's cutting into our bottom line, because we need to make more profit, and, you know, our sales aren't growing as fast. So guess what? Your healthcare plan's fucked. But there's social healthcare. Oh shit. No, they're taking that away too. So, like, it's just crazy. Like, this is the thing we have to remember, and like, time and time again, and I go back to, like, capitalism and these big corporations. Obviously they're important because there's value to have, you know, employment and everything else. But at the end of the day, these companies, and pretty much every big company out there, they do not give a fuck about the people. They care about one thing and one thing only: profit.
Exactly.
That's it. So like, no matter what, you're going to give them tax breaks. You think that's going to help them with their employees or give them, stuff?
No.
And we saw this.
Trickle down economics.
Exactly. We saw this when there was like, all sorts of things happening with COVID benefits and everything. These companies still did layoffs. Like they don't care. They're going to do.
They don't care.
Exactly. And it's like with Trump coming in and his administration, it's like they're going to, and if anything, they're actually going to hurt themselves because they're going to, decrease the taxes that they're giving out to these, decrease taxes for these big corporations who in turn, that's going to mean less revenue for the government. That's going to have less money to do anything for the people.
Right. Well, they spend a lot of money on military and giving money to Israel.
That's another big military spend.
U.S. has the biggest military by like I don't know how many fold, but like by a lot.
I saw this stat that it said that the I can't remember if this is still completely accurate as of today though, but I know it was like maybe 5 years ago or something. But they said that the U.S. spends spends the same on military as the next top 10 countries.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
That are all their allies.
Exactly.
It's like, okay, well, like it's crazy.
That's where the money is going.
Yeah.
This is why when people talk about, and we're talking about a country that doesn't provide healthcare for its people, like public healthcare. So it's like even if you took a fraction of what they spend on the military and put it into public healthcare, you probably could cover a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? But I think what really upset me about this election and like the results is not necessarily the fact that like, oh, Donald Trump won, but I think it's like the way that he ran his campaign, because like, let's face it, he was not running a good campaign either. But the way that he ran his campaign was like very heavily based on like anti-immigration, which he did before as well. Yep. And very much, obviously blaming immigrants and all of this stuff, which is very hate-filled and very based on like, not true facts about what immigration does. And again, like directing the, people's disdain for the economy to hate for the immigrants, right? Yeah. And blaming the immigrants. So it's like he ran his campaign based on that, anti-immigration, hating on immigrants, lies about immigrants, about how they're eating cats and fucking dogs or whatever.
Oh my God, I still
And also the fact that, again, anti-abortion policies. And he ran based on all of these things and the fact that he's, a convicted felon and a rapist, very sexist, all these things. And yet so many people voted for him, which I feel like represents where the world is going. So it's like, it's not the fact that Trump is the president. It's the fact that so many people, he won the fucking popular vote.
Well, you know what's a really sad thing? The breakdown.
Oh,
and
should we look at the breakdown?
How many women?
How many women voted? How many white women voted for him?
Yes.
Exactly. I think that's what made me extra sad. It's just like, where is the world going? Because the thing is, the world is definitely regressing. Like we are not going in the direction that I thought the world was going to go, which is like progressive and like things are, becoming more fair and more equitable. But we're going the opposite way.
Which actually, in the grand scheme of things, guys, and I'm not bringing this podcast to doom and gloom, but I'm going to go there anyway. But a lot of the issues that we're facing as a society and as a global society are global issues, right? And as we regress and as we become more like part of Trump's campaign is national,
first.
Exactly, America first. Well,
which we will discuss in a bit.
But like all of these things are taking a step back in a sense that like we really need to be coming together, especially like the biggest thing that like really terrifies me right now is, okay, obviously the economy, that's partly important, but guys, like we are literally catapulting ourselves to a fucking climate fucking disaster.
Oh, that's another thing.
And there's not, and the instead of all these countries coming together, they're doing things, but then it's like people are pulling out, like the Paris Accords.
He's probably going to pull out of Paris.
100% he will. Like
he doesn't even believe in climate change. He literally, I've seen videos of him like basically saying like, oh, climate change is like not a real thing.
Yeah. I mean, come on.
You voted a guy that doesn't even believe in climate change and it's 2024.
Look outside right now, Rose. Like we're in mid-November and we've had no snow?
Yeah, exactly.
And that's that's crazy.
So let's look at the
oh God,
breakdown
it's so
here.
fucking depressing.
So 74% of white men voted Republican. 24% voted Democrat. That's very depressing. What's more depressing, 69% of white women voted Republican. Now, black men and women, fucking hand it to you. I do think, again, this is why America is still so racially
motivated
and divided. Okay. Because I do think like a lot of people did. I mean, and again, fair. I think a lot of people voted because she's a black woman.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they wanted a black president.
Yeah.
Which, you know what? Fair. I think we need a black woman president. But I don't like to play that game. Like, it's not because I'm not upset because a woman president did not win, right?
Yeah.
Because if it was a conservative woman president, which I think that's the only way that America will ever vote a woman president, if she runs as a conservative or as a Republican. Yeah. There's no way, right? So, but yeah, a lot of people are like, oh, you're upset because like a woman didn't win. No, that's not why I'm upset. I'm upset because so many people voted for someone like Trump and the policies and the sexist policies and the regressive policies that he stands for.
Yeah.
Anyway, 90% of black women voted. That's the biggest demographic that voted for Kamala.
Yeah.
Latino men, basically it was like almost half.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, we're talking about someone that is so anti-Latino.
I know. This is what blows my mind. How do you guys vote for somebody? And I think, we've talked about this in another podcast, but we talked about how there's certain, and I don't want to speak on behalf of all immigrants, but I think there's certain immigrants that they come into the country and then they start to dissociate with like,
it's a big thing.
Yeah. With like Mexico and some of these other places, and they start to associate with like, a certain way. And they're like, oh, those, people just like, I came here legally. I've done my dues. I'm a good immigrant. And you have all these people fucking jumping the fence and fucking whatever. And it's like,
okay, let's talk about immigration.
Yeah.
People talk, first of all, so it's very true that people that are Latinos in the States are not necessarily pro-immigration. And if you talk to a lot of them are just anti-immigration in general, not just illegal immigration.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're like, oh, like we have enough of them. Yeah. And again, it's the same thing. It's like assimilating into American culture and, thinking... And also, it's like, it's a way of getting ahead, right? It's like if you are for the elite... if you kind of side with the elite and side with the, successful people, that means, cozying up to, the white man, like.
Pretty much. And this is what's so ironic, though, because like literally, how could somebody, like us, for example, both immigrants here to Canada, my whole family immigrated here. It's like, how could I be against immigration when that's how the fuck I got here in the first place? Do you know what I mean?
We think of ourselves. I mean, again, if we were thinking in that mindset, I think it's people thinking of themselves as like, I'm one of the good ones, or I'm successful here and I'm doing really well. All these people, I don't know. It's like a thing. It's like a weird psychological phenomenon, which happens everywhere.
It's crazy. Cause like, again, I'm not saying that, oh my gosh, I get why there needs to be certain rules and regulations around immigration. I get that. Like, I totally understand. But I'm never going to be against it. I'm never going to be like, oh, we need to close our borders and fucking build a wall.
And also let's fucking talk about illegal immigration for a second. It's like, first of all, you think people want to fucking, illegally cross the border? You think they are doing that because they're just like bored? These people are in desperate situations. Okay. We don't understand what this situation is until you're in that fucking situation. There are people crossing the border, like fucking families being ripped apart. You think they want to leave their home country to go to a country where they're probably going to be discriminated on, where they're probably going to work shitty jobs because they're in a desperate situation, most of which is built happened because of colonialism and all of the issues that happened with the drug war, which by the way, America is very heavily responsible for.
100%.
So it's like, you created a lot of these problems in these countries that are, that have all of these political problems. It's not just only the state's fault or whatever, but a lot of these countries have corruption issues. Again, the drug war is a huge factor.
Yeah.
And America is a huge beneficiary of the fucking drug war in Mexico.
Yeah.
So it's
crazy.
These problems are created in these countries, a lot of which has to do with colonialism. And then the people that are suffering are trying to escape that situation, and now we're blaming them for wanting to escape the situation. It's like, I understand. Again, I agree that yes, we do need some kind of, you can't just like let everyone in, I guess. Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, where's the empathy for people that are struggling in that situation?
Exactly. I think the problem is though too, like if you think about a country like Canada, right?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not playing devil's advocate here. I'm again pro-immigration. I think it's important. We need it.
Yes.
But
we are a country of immigrants.
Exactly.
What are you talking about? There's so much anti-immigration hate nowadays, and it's so crazy.
It's insane. And I do feel like, to your point, part of the thing is not necessarily just about Trump winning. It's what he represents.
Yes.
And that not only did he win, but he did a landslide win.
Yeah.
Which goes to show you what the overall sentiment is
what
of
I mean.
people. And that's what's scary. Like, we talk about the rise of the Andrew Tates and the, what do we call them? The guys that are like, is it incels?
Incels, yeah.
Like involuntary celibate, all this sort of stuff. And these people are angry. They're frustrated.
I think it's the male vote.
And then that's why they're like, I need change and rah, rah, rah. But with immigration, going back to that, it's like a country like Canada, for example. I think it's important. We have immigration. We have it happening. But like, for example, if something like wild happened in like, let's say Mexico, or I'm just using that as an example.
Sure.
Mexico's a country of like what, 110 million people?
I have no idea. A lot of people.
Yeah. But let's just say like this would never happen, but let's just say all 110 million of them were like, we're going to immigrate to Canada. Like it would be impossible, right? Like it would, I don't know what would happen. Like it would be crazy. But again, I think within outlined metrics or whatever, I think it's a very important thing. Like I think there should be a kind of free movement of people around to be able to go and work and do things they want to do.
I mean, I don't even the whole border thing is also kind of stupid, but whatever. We've designed a system in which there are countries and borders. And I get, okay, you want to protect your own or whatever, but this whole oh, how dare you cross the border illegally? Well, you think they wanted to? Like, maybe because are you going to blame a North Korean defector for wanting to fucking flee North Korea?
Exactly.
Like, maybe they were in a desperate situation. Maybe they were fighting for their lives. Maybe they wanted to, go and to the land of opportunity.
There's shit that people are dealing with that we can't even fathom.
Exactly.
Like the kind of like abuse, the kind of danger, like seeing people killed in front of them.
What would you fucking do?
This is insanity.
Fucking Susan, what would you fucking do? Oh. So it's like, that's another thing. It's like, oh, illegal immigrants. Okay. And again, the fact that you think that is the biggest problem when you have literal like corporations literally sucking the economy dry is so insane to me.
I know.
Anyways, okay.
I know.
What else is there?
And this is the thing too, like going back with thinking about the corporations and everything, we talked about the mass layoffs, but like that has huge downstream impacts on an economy, right? Like you have these big companies laying off tens of thousands of people. Like we're not talking about like a couple people. We're talking like, I can't remember what the stat was.
Huge amount of people.
Like last year or the year before when all the tech companies and a lot of big companies were doing these layoffs, it's like all of these people now, a lot of them, they were going to remain unemployed for quite some time, right? Because again, you flood the market with this many people, there's not as many other jobs to like take them up. So tons of people stay unemployed for a while. What do you think that fucking does to the economy?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what do you think that's going to do? People are going to, obviously, if I got laid off tomorrow, guess what? My discretionary spend is like going to be non-existent. Exactly. Until I get a new job, until I figure my shit out. So like you expect the economy to be thriving when these big corporations are just mass laying people off. Like
it's going to trickle in a bad way.
Exactly. And that's why I'm like, what is Trump going to do to protect that? What is he going to do to stop these companies from squeezing? And it's not just about the layoffs. It's the fact that on the flip side, the companies are also squeezing as much profit as they can from whatever product they're selling and trying to sell it for the highest price that they possibly can. And basically squeezing consumers. Like it's crazy.
And we've seen these corporations. It's like if you think that corporate tax cuts are going to trickle to the common man and the modern man, you are insane. Because you see corporations, we talk about this all the time, that are in like record profits, that are still laying people off, that are paying their CEOs a shit ton of money while paying their average worker a shitty salary, and then laying people off and saying that they don't have money while they make fucking record profits.
Exactly. And then what do they do with those profits? They divvy them out to all the shareholders.
Exactly. So it's like again, a lot of people, maybe even people listening to this podcast, might still benefit from the Trumps, whatever. Like if you're in the top 5% or something. But if you're someone in the lower middle class, you are insane if you think the Republicans are going to look out for your fucking best interest. Well, because they're not.
Exactly. Me and Rose were talking about this before because we're also like, we're both privileged in a sense. Like,
we might even benefit.
We probably would.
We were in the States.
And this is the thing. For me, I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'm privileged. I have an investment property. Like I'm able to do these things, but also I don't fucking mind paying tax on this stuff. Like I already know that I'm doing well. So like if I have to pay a little bit more tax, I don't really fucking care.
Yeah. If
Like,
it
I don't see what the big
means-
deal is.
Exactly.
Like, I'm sorry. If you're a fucking billionaire or you're making, like, I don't know,
Yeah.
50 million a year, even if you have to pay 60% tax, you're still walking away with like fucking
I know.
so much money, more money than like you actually need. Like, I just don't get it.
I
Like,
know.
I don't understand this whole, I shouldn't
Hoarding
be
of
taxed.
wealth.
Exactly.
It's a hoarding of wealth.
It's
It's
crazy.
the biggest issue when income inequality creates so many problems because not only does it mean that there are people that are fucking struggling while someone else is literally like, I see some TikToks where people are like, oh, like a really rich person is like, oh my God, this is how much I spent over the weekend. And it's like it's like someone's fucking more than someone's yearly salary.
Yeah.
And it's like, we watch that and we think, oh, this is normal. It's so perverted that we think it's like normal to see that kind of thing while people cannot put food on the table.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, if the Republicans are not, and I'm not saying Democrats are perfect at all.
No.
I'm not even for them, really, to be honest with you. But we're talking about voting for the lesser of two evils here.
Yeah.
Okay. But like when you think evil, the Republicans are definitely going to be worse when it comes to income inequality.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about, this is stressing me out. Okay. So a lot of people were saying that the reason why they voted for Trump or whatever is, again, the economy, which I think they are completely misguided.
Yeah.
But they're talking about how they like the America First strategy.
Right.
As in, they were talking about, like,
Yes.
Trump was talking about tariffs, okay? And how he's going to put all these tariffs on imported goods. And then I saw a bunch of interviews of people realizing this after the fact, without realizing that tariffs means the American companies will have to pay for the imported tariff. As in, when they ship something from China, the Chinese company is not going to pay the tariff. The American company has to pay the tariff.
Yeah.
Meaning, if something was, let's say, $10 and there was no tariff on it, American company pays $10. All of a sudden, there's a 20% tariff. Now the American company has to pay $12 for the same good. Now, you think that they're going to absorb the cost?
Hell no. This is
Exactly.
this is comical. And you know, the funny thing is, sorry to like cut you
No,
off there, but
continue.
like this exact scenario is, if we look what happened during COVID, and you know how all of a sudden we had increased supply chain
Right.
costs. What did the companies do, guys? We have a case example of what companies do when their costs get increased. Do they eat those costs? Do they take a little bit less profit of the billions? Fuck no. They increase they not only
Yeah.
will they increase. So going back to your example of the $10 good from China that's now costing the company $12. Well, originally on that $10, there was, let's say, a 50% markup.
Yeah.
Well, now that $2, it doesn't just add $2 to the price.
Yeah.
No. It's $2 plus a 50% markup
Yeah.
on the fucking $2
Yeah.
to the American consumer.
Exactly. And so I think the whole point, I think what people think is going to happen is, okay, because they put these tariffs in place, it's going to decrease the imported goods, meaning that, okay, we're going to create more jobs in the States
Yeah.
for, certain manufacturing jobs or whatever, and which it might do. But at the
Yeah.
same time, if you think that's not going to increase costs, because a lot of people, the concern is the increase in costs, right? It's like, that's everyone's concern.
Yeah.
They're concerned about increasing costs of everything, cost of goods, cost of services. And so if you think that, why do you think we import things? Why do you think there is such thing as trade? It's because in certain countries, like China, for example, or, whatever other countries, it is cheaper to produce goods in China. So manufacturing is much cheaper in China, which is why the majority of people that have any sort of product that they sell in the States, for example, they import it from other countries where the cost of manufacturing is much cheaper. Therefore, the cost of good is much cheaper. So when you start cutting out the trade and you start to do things in-house, which is fine, like you can do that. I'm not against that. But that is going to extremely heighten the price of everything, because not only are your wages more expensive, your cost of goods is going to be more expensive if produced in the States, and especially if you're not as good as making the thing as the China is, then it's going to cost more to whatever, like produce it, like whatever. You have less resources because now you don't have the free market. Again, I'm not for like 100% like free market, but like you don't have free trade, so it's going to increase prices in every single way.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, again, these companies that are manufacturing these jobs, or not manufacturers, let's just use them
Yes.
as an example. I do wonder, I get the argument and to say, hey, we want to get more goods produced in the US.
In the US.
So let's say I'm a big factory, okay, right? So like I'm a huge company, but I have a factory in the US and I'm increasing production in the US because of these tariffs and
Sure.
everything else. But like, it's a more complicated issue, because what's stopping me, and a lot of companies are doing this nowadays, what's stopping me from laying off my IT team and having an IT team in a different country? So now instead of it's almost like they can just fuck around with the problem, where they can say, okay, well, you're right, it's going to create manufacturing jobs, but now I'm paying a lot to these manufacturing workers, so we're going to downsize my IT team and my ops team, and those are going to be out of, you know, the Philippines or somewhere else.
What's already happening.
I know, but I think it will it could exacerbate the problem.
Totally.
And the net effect could actually be not doing much change. You know what I mean? Because again, companies care about profits. They will do whatever they have to do. If they have to pay increased manufacturing costs here, boom, they're going to send somebody else out somewhere else. Or like you said, if they have to start paying tariffs to move, like if I'm Walmart and I'm shipping in a ton of shit, do you think I'm going to eat those in my profits? Fuck no. I'm passing this on to consumers. Consumers are the one. It's like in Canada.
There's no consumer protection.
No, it's like in Canada, and I can't remember where they got to with this, but there was approval for companies to start passing on credit card fees to consumers. And again, there's arguments to and from, but like, again, it just shows you that these companies originally were paying this cost, and now they're like, fuck no, we're going to pass it on to the end consumer now.
Yeah.
Now you have to pay an extra 3% or 2% on your transaction. So like, again, the consumers are the one that's going to end up facing the brunt of it.
So there's videos of people there's people that are literally like, I think on the day of the election, they're like, oh, what do tariffs mean? I'm like, maybe do your research before. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, and the idea, again, and I use like, there's examples of companies that do, you know, manufacture things within the country. And again, I'm not against that. Yeah. I think sometimes it's a bold thing to do, because the thing is, it is so much more expensive. For example, like that company that went under, like American Apparel. Right. Their whole shtick was America first, right? It's like, oh, we produce everything in America. Yeah, that's why their skirts cost fucking $60 or $70 per piece. And again, it's great. They're using ethical practices. They're doing all of these great things. But why do you think things are so cheap in the States? Like for certain things. Yeah. Why do you think a fucking shirt costs $10 versus like $50?
Well, and that's the thing. Like, especially these big brand like H&M and all of these things. It's like a lot of it, they're getting it from like Southeast Asia, all these places
so there's ethical things in place as well, which I completely agree with. It's not good. Yeah. But it's like the idea that things are going to get cheaper because of these tariffs and because you're doing things America first is insane. Like from an economics perspective, it's absolutely insane. Yeah. Okay. So it doesn't make any sense that we are thinking, oh, if we do everything in the States, it's going to create all these jobs. Okay, but people can't fucking afford anything because everything's going to cost like $1 million.
Exactly. And it creates jobs, but do you think it's not going to, like I said before, offset some of the other jobs where companies are going to be like, you know what? I'm going to have my IT team, my expensing team, my operations team, any team that I can. They're going to be in India. They're going to be in the Philippines. They're
not going to pay. Yeah. So anyone that works in an office, in, you know, a 9 to 5 working on a computer. Good luck if you're in IT. Exactly.
Well,
good luck.
This is the thing too. I mean, if you think about it, again, depending on the field and everything else, but like a manufacturing worker is going to be probably earning less than somebody that's like a senior IT director at a company, right? So again, it's like these constant problems where it's like, what's happening? And we haven't even talked yet
about Roe v. Wade.
I know.
I was going to bring this up. And again, I know we haven't even talked about one of the biggest things. Some people are like, oh, you think people are going to care when their bottom line is struggling and their economy is struggling and they're struggling to food on the table. You think people are going to care about like Roe v. Wade? Yes, you should fucking care about Roe v. Wade.
100%.
And because of all the things mentioned, Trump is not going to better the economy for working class people. That's my belief. Yes. But Roe v. Wade, we're talking about a man that, and again, I know he didn't do it. It was this is basically what happened for as far as I understand. Maybe I'm wrong, but basically while Trump was in office, one of the Supreme Court justices, what's her name? Ruth Ginsburg. She passed away. Now, a lot of people wanted her to step down during when it was a Democratic Party. Yeah. Because what happens is when one of the Supreme Court justices pass away, you have to replace that person. And that is up to, I believe, the current administration. Right. So, unfortunately, she did not step down, which I think she should have. Yeah. She didn't step down. She passed away during the Trump administration. And then Trump, of course, elected a Republican.
Got his buddy in there.
And then it became a Republican majority. Yeah. And therefore, within that power, they decided to overturn Roe v. Wade, which is something that literally came into place in the 1970s.
Yeah.
Okay? 1970s. We have overturned. We have gone back to before 1970s. And basically where
fucking
the
depressing.
federal, because Roe v. Wade was a federal right to abortion, right? It was a federal right. And that was overturned. Therefore, now there is no federal protection for abortion.
And what can happen now is it doesn't equate to necessarily a federal ban to say like you can't do it.
It's not a federal ban. It's up to the states.
Exactly. Each state now, though, is able to, within their own, however it works,
jurisdiction
and however they vote for it and whatever it fucking goes through in their state, but they can actually put it forward and say, okay, well, actually, we want to change this in our state now. And we've seen it happen in a bunch of states as like a rolling wave of all these states. And it's like, oh my God. And then you hear like, again, you hear people on like talk shows and all sorts of things. And they're like, well, if you don't like it, just move, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like,
or it's like, oh, he's not for a federal ban. So it's okay. It's not fucking okay. It's a human right. It's a basic human right.
That's been taken away.
That's been taken away in many states.
Yeah.
Continue.
And it's crazy. Yeah, it's just crazy to me because it's like people like this was national news because it was a landmark case. For you to downplay that and be like, oh, it's not a big deal because it's not a national ban. It's not like they're saying it's a ban.
It's up to the states. Okay, so like, you're okay with your state dictating what can happen with your body? Okay.
Exactly. And then like, oh well, you know what? If people don't like it in that state, there's just fucking move to another state.
Easy for you to say.
Huge percentage of people do not have that fucking option. We're talking majority of people now, and we talked about this in Canada, UK, US as well. So many people are living paycheck to paycheck. Do you think people are floating around here with extra money that can just be like, you know what, I'm going to fucking go live in BC or whatever. And like, we are the fortunate ones because I can reflect on that and say, hey, you know what? I know that I'm in a fortunate position that I could move to a different province if I wanted to and look for work there and be okay and do whatever. But that's not the norm for a lot of people. A lot of people are barely paying their bills and like struggling. So like you have to think about other people other than yourself.
And also, even if you were to be selfish and if you lived in a state that, for example, like Texas or I don't know, fucking Mississippi, probably, if you lived in a state that has that abortion ban in place, which again, by the way, a lot of people have already suffered due to this overturning of Roe v. Wade.
Yep.
And we're talking about rape victims here. We're talking about like victims of incest. Like some of these states do not even cover a lot of people don't want to cover. I don't know exactly if they passed it yet, but a lot of people don't want to cover cases of rape. A lot of people in positions of power, they believe that abortion should still be illegal even when you were raped, even when you're the victim of incest or whatever. But so if you live in, for example, Texas or whatever other like a Republican state where the abortion ban has taken place to some degree, you are still fucked. Even if you don't actually want to have an abortion, because people think, oh, for example, like people always talk about like late stage abortion or whatever, where the thing is, if you are having a late stage abortion, you think that is something that they wanted to do majority of the time? No, because if you're going to carry a child, carry a fetus for, I don't know, like 6-7 months, you think that person wanted to abort that fetus? Probably not. They probably wanted to keep that fucking fetus. But you know what happens? Miscarriages.
Yeah.
Miscarriages happen. And they happen a lot more often than people like to admit. They happen. And what happens is when it's a miscarriage, and this happened in like, I think it was Texas, where a woman, it was like an 18-year-old woman that was pregnant. She was suffering a miscarriage. The fetus, it was a, late term miscarriage.
Yeah.
The fetus died in her womb, but doctors wouldn't operate on her because there is a lot of doctors that are afraid to go to jail or afraid for the repercussions.
Yeah.
Because it's like, sometimes it's like vague. Sometimes it's like, okay, it's still considered an abortion. And there's a lot of like, subjectivity to the medical diagnosis.
And you don't want to be stuck in that gray area where you could lose your doctor license.
So she was not being operated on because she had to wait for some kind of approval, and then she died because what happens is when the fetus dies within you got to get that thing out. Otherwise you get like, I don't know, you get like sick and then you could die.
Well, because it probably starts like, you'd imagine like it starts, bacteria and it starts like,
so you get a lot of health issues because of this. So it's not just because, people think, they're all these little kids, they just want to have abortions, have sex like left, right, and center. No, it can happen to you even if you are pregnant and you want to have the baby, and if you have a fucking miscarriage and you have issue, you're gonna start having issues. So it could still affect you. I know you don't care about other people, but it could still affect you.
Yeah.
So it's like, and what fucking kills me is that people, it's not a women's rights issue. Oh, it's about life. It's about life. It's not fucking about life, because again, we just talked about how a woman literally died. Many women have died because you wanted to protect a fetus over the woman. Okay, so let's talk about that for a second.
Are we back in Handmaid's Tale? I feel like
literally, it's fucking Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah.
And it is a women's rights issue, because whether we like it or not, women are the only ones that can get pregnant, or, you know, like biological women are the only ones that can get pregnant. Yep. Okay. And if men could get pregnant, let's say fucking freak of nature happened, and all of a sudden we found out tomorrow men could start getting pregnant. You don't think abortion would be legalized in every single fucking country on this fucking planet today if we found out that men all of a sudden had to face the consequences of having unprotected sex or having sex? You think that men would voluntarily carry a baby for 9 months if they had sex? You think men would take that risk? You think that we wouldn't legalize abortion today? Fuck no. Of course it would be legalized in every single goddamn country, everywhere, if men could get pregnant.
Yes, it would.
I believe it to my core.
Yeah.
This is why it's a women's issue.
We're never gonna see that happen, though, because
I know.
like,
I
obviously,
wish we could see it happen. I wish we could, because I want it to be proven right, because you know it's true.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
100%.
Because if men, okay, the horny ass men out there, if they could get pregnant from having sex and had to carry that baby for 9 months, you think they do it?
No.
This is why it's a women's rights issue. It is a fucking human right issue. It is a fucking issue.
Yeah.
And it pisses me off.
It's just sad. And I think the main trend of what's going on right now, again, with Trump winning and stuff, I think you hit the nail on the head. It's not even just about Trump and at all. It's just the fact that there's becoming such a divide, and it's becoming so extreme to one side, and it's like really, really scary.
Yeah. And I think we're seeing this trend not just in the States, but all over the country, all over the world. Yeah. Where things are becoming more and more extreme, right wing. There's a huge gender divide in how people vote as well. There's a lot 100%. Of men that are becoming more and more extreme. And some people were pointing out that, for example, when it comes to, online personalities, like online political personalities, streamers, a lot of people that these young men watch. If you look at it, there's very few liberal voices. There's very few left-wing voices. There's a lot more right-wing voices. And also, if you think about how much more money that there is in right-wing politics, because like we said, there's corporations that,
will back them because it's in their best interest.
Exactly. So all these idiots that are making these videos are probably making fucking millions of dollars. Look at Steven Crowder. What was that thing where he was going to get paid like $50 million or something absolutely ridiculous? You think left-wing channels are offered that much money? Fuck no. So it's like, there's a lot more voices, especially, within the male kind of young man space. Because young men, I agree, they're frustrated. There's a lot of problems as well that they're facing, which I understand. But they're directing it and they're misguided in blaming literally everyone else.
I know, there's so many like issues going on. It's actually like really scary.
Exactly. Like with the rise in, like even like school shootings. Who are the people that are doing the school shootings? Yeah. Young men.
Well, they were saying the most dangerous demographic out there is young single men that are what's the word, like, and not antisocial, but just like not getting out, not doing anything. They're at home by themselves all the time. They're like
a huge epidemic.
They're watching Steven Crowder and all these like extremists, and it's perpetuating that, stumbling that, like self-fulfilling that view. They watch TikToks and their algorithm gets impacted, and they're getting lots of Andrew Tate kind of shit, all that sort of thing, and it exacerbates the problem. And because they're like disconnected from society, then they start to like lash out, and we see that like increase in violence and gun violence, all this shit. It's like so scary.
It's fucking scary.
Yeah.
And then yet people are like, oh, why would I vote a woman president? What if she has her period? What if she has her fucking period? You think we're walking around like fucking, you think women are the ones walking around committing violent crimes? You know, like something like 90-something% of violent crimes are perpetuated by men.
Yeah.
So you think that's not based on emotion? I hate when men are like, oh, women are just too emotional. You think anger is not an emotion?
Mm-hmm.
You think that men that commit violent crimes are not acting out of anger?
An emotion?
Out of emotion? Like, it's such fucking bullshit that
crazy.
women are the emotional ones. It's like, and also, every war that's ever been started has been started by a man. We're literally in the middle of a fucking war. And we haven't even talked about Israel. Actually, it's pretty bad. They're both fucking bad on Israel. But Trump is not going to be any better on Israel.
Yeah.
In fact, Israel is very happy that Trump won.
Of course.
Because Trump is going to be on their side. And the Palestinians are going to suffer even more. It's,
God.
I can't.
Oh, God.
So there you go. There's the rant.
Yep.
I've been needing to do that for days.
We needed to get it off our chest.
Oh, it's so depressing. Like, I was actually very upset.
Yeah, me too. And again, I think it's more, it is partly that, partly Trump getting elected.
It's where the world is going.
Exactly. It's what it represents. And it's depressing as hell. And we have one more depressing story to talk about.
Oh, goddamn. Well, this is a pop culture story, but it is kind of sad,
it's
actually.
It's so sad.
What happened a while ago now because we haven't recorded for a
I know,
bit.
because we haven't, like, obviously been doing our regular programming.
Have you been a One Direction fan?
I was never really like a huge One Direction fan, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I feel like I missed that era because it was
we were
like
a bit older.
We were a bit older, yeah. It was like they came out and I was like, oh. I was more into like The Wanted. Like
right.
They were kind of.
Which, by the way, one of those guys died too.
I know. Oh my God.
Of like cancer, was it?
Yeah, he had like health issues.
Yeah.
But
so Liam Payne. Hey?
Liam Payne. Yeah, and we should pull up the story because I can't remember exactly. So basically, from the sounds of it, he was traveling and he was in Argentina with his girlfriend, I think.
Yes.
So essentially, what happened is.
So Liam Payne, one of the stars of One Direction,
who became a massive like teeny bop band.
Yep.
Yeah.
And he fell off of a balcony in a hotel in Argentina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which again, it obviously that is very suspicious because there's a couple things you could think about here. Okay, was this a suicide? Yeah. Was this, foul play? Like all of this stuff. And
well, it says here, apparently 3 people have been charged in connection with the death of One Direction star Liam Payne. God, the things that happen when you're a famous person and you die. Hey? So many people get charged.
I wonder. You know what? I don't wonder because I probably never want to see this, but I'm always just like, we literally, as the general public, have no fucking idea the crazy shit that goes on behind closed doors with these celebrities, with these like business moguls, with all these people. Like, you see movies like The Wolf of Wall Street and stuff. I feel like that doesn't even scratch the surface. I mean, look at all this shit coming out about Diddy, about all this stuff. Like, again, I'm not saying that Liam Payne was involved in that stuff, but I mean, the drug use, the, who knows what could happen. And then also all the people that surround you that really will just do anything that you want them to do. They're just like, oh, you want Rose? You want some fucking drugs?
Yep.
I'll get you some drugs.
Yep.
Like it's like very like it's crazy. But anyway, sorry, continue.
So apparently, he died on October 16th after falling from the 3rd floor balcony of a hotel in Buenos Aires.
Oh, God.
So I guess, said one person who had been accompanying Payne is accused of the abandonment of a person followed by death. I don't know what this means. Okay?
So does that mean that like after he did it, they just like ran off and they were like,
oh
my God, I don't want to be associated. I'm going to leave.
A hotel employee and a 3rd person have also been charged with supplying drugs. None of those arrests have been named. Okay. So he rose to fame. He appeared on X Factor. Then he was like one of the singers in One Direction. And yeah, he fell. It's very sad. People say he was high and drunk and he was trashing the entire room, apparently.
Yeah.
And also, apparently, the toxicology test revealed traces of alcohol, cocaine, and a prescription antidepressant in his body. Guys, let me tell you again, time and time again, fame and fortune, not worth it.
No, it's not like
not worth it because I think he had a lot of issues as well, like after One Direction as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what the issues were. I've never really followed One Direction, but I think he had a lot of like mental health issues and depression.
Well, I think it's hard because again, this is like you're thrown or catapulted into a life of not really reality. You know what I mean? Like you're thrown into this like kind of alternate universe where the world does become your oyster. You get
Yeah.
so much money at such a young age.
Such a young age.
You
'Cause
get-
what is he? He was 31 when he died, and One Direction was famous, what, like 10 years ago?
Or more. So he was like,
Yeah.
maybe
He was like literally in his late teens and
Yeah.
early 20s.
Exactly. And it's like, you know, no one prepares you for that. And I do feel like this, and again, I could be misquoted saying this, but like, I feel like a lot of individuals that got catapulted into fame at a young age versus maybe a little bit older, they seem to have a lot more
a lot of problems.
challenges adapting to that lifestyle, because I think it would be overwhelming for anyone. Like, imagine like you can't do anything normally anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you want to go to Safeway and get groceries. It's like, you can't. Like, you want to go to the coffee shop and meet a friend. You can't. Like, so I think
and also even just like the stress of, you know, if you look at like a boy band, the stress of touring and just constantly being on the road. Like, you're not, like, I imagine it's exciting at first, but after a while you're probably exhausted. And you're constantly swarmed by people. You can't live a normal, you can't like go outside and enjoy a fucking cup of coffee in Buenos Aires. You have to like fucking be in your hotel room all the time.
Yeah. Well, I watched this, this was like years ago, but I remember Britney Spears had like, she was doing like a documentary or something. She was talking about her life, and I'll never forget what she said, because she said, to your point, when her fame started, it was super, super fun. Yeah. Right? She's like traveling the world and doing all these concerts. And so for the first kind of like couple of albums, she was like having a really good time. Yeah. But then when she stopped to take a break, right? This is what she was saying. She's like, you know, you're go, go, go. It was so much fun, so crazy and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden you hit a moment where you're like, okay, I'm going to take a little bit of time. I'm going to and it all catches up to you. Right. And that's when it hit her. And she was like, holy fuck, this is crazy. You know? So I feel like that happens a lot. It's like, you're right. Initially, it's super, super fun. And you get caught up in it all for maybe a few years. And then afterwards, you're like, oh my God, this is my life now. And you're like, you can't. And she said also, because she was touring and always on the road, she didn't really, I mean, obviously she knew the paparazzi was there. Yeah. But it wasn't like they were hounding her life. Right. Whereas like she goes home to take a break now. Yeah. And it's like.
It's everywhere.
Exactly. So it kind of. Whereas before it's like, oh, we were just going into a hotel, quickly doing a concert, on a plane to leave. You don't really notice. You're like, whatever. Sure. But then you get home and you're like, oh, I'm going to go hang out with my friends. And you have like 50 people following you. Right. So then you're like, okay, this isn't fun anymore. Yeah. So that's crazy. Yeah.
So who knows what happened. But I guess some people are getting arrested. I think he jumped out of the balcony. I don't know. Like,
yeah, nobody knows for sure though. Like, did he jump? Was he pushed? Was he like tripping? And
they're saying, I think what I heard was that he was like damaging the hotel room and he was being like belligerent. And so I think a lot of people think he jumped, whether or not, like, I don't think he was in a regular state of mind. Yeah. But really sad.
And he has a child as well.
He has a child. But you know what's kind of fucked up? He was in, I found this out after the fact, because again, I don't really know anything about this person. Yeah. But he was in a relationship with
Cheryl Cole,
who was one of the judges when he auditioned, and he was like 14. Yeah. That's like kind of fucked.
It's kind of weird. Yeah, it is kind of weird.
If it was a woman, if it was a girl and an older man, people would be having a very different conversation.
I mean, to her, because I do like Cheryl a lot.
A little predatory, not
it is. It is a little predatory.
If it was a man, Daniel, you would have a different reaction.
I probably no. You know what?
Because she waited until he was 18. Is that where you're gonna say?
They got together when he was like much older. Like he was like.
I get it, but it's kind of like it's weird. Like I guess I get it, but no, it's weird.
It is weird. It is kind of weird. It's like okay.
She's like she was so much. Okay, what is the age difference? When did they get together?
2016.
So what? He was like literally just barely of age. So that was 8 years ago. He's 31 now. So that was like he was like 23.
Yeah, and she's older than us.
Oh, she's way older.
Yeah.
I think it's weird because when they met, he was like 15.
That part's kind of a bit strange.
A bit strange.
It is.
You know. Because hang on, let me see how old she is. Being a little sexist there, Daniel. You're giving her a pass because she's a woman.
I'm not giving her a pass. No one gets a pass.
Because don't they have a son together? Yep. Yeah, she's 41. She's born in 83, whereas I think he is like what, like fucking born in like 94 or something.
Probably even later.
I think so.
Oh god damn.
Anyways.
Oh god. Anyway.
It's quite sad.
Yeah, very very sad, guys. Also,
Don't become famous.
Don't become famous. Results of the election. Who knows what's going to happen in America now? Like, it's actually depressing.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Now, the thing is, it's a Republican, what did they say? It's a Republican Senate. It's a Republican presidency. And it's a Republican House. So, like, basically, it's all Republicans. I don't know exactly, like, again, they said it's like the trio of like a Republican. They're all in power.
It's all Republican, yeah. So they're going to just do whatever the fuck they want.
I
mean, the only silver lining is, I guess, you know, if we eventually get a Democrat party in the U.S., I mean, look at Roe versus Wade, got overturned, like, you know, however many years later. So whatever the Republicans do to fuck up the country,
well, it depends.
It could get overturned potentially.
It could, but only if they have like a majority Democrat in the what do you call it? What's the word?
The White House?
No, not the White House. The Supreme Court.
Supreme Court.
God damn it. I think that's the only way.
Yeah,
and also I just don't agree with this whole like Supreme Court has like the full fucking like, you know, they have the authority to do all this fucking crazy shit as if they are not biased. People like to make it seem like, oh, they're acting based on the Constitution. Are they? That's
an unbiased opinion.
Yeah, right. Everyone is biased.
This is true. And on that positive note, thank you so much.
On that positive note, hopefully for those of you that are in this, I'm sure many people that listen to our podcast probably agree with us.
Yeah.
So sending positive thoughts to all of us.
Especially
it's not just the states that are going to be affected.
We're all impacted, unfortunately. So it is what it is. Let's see what happens, guys.
See what happens. Maybe it won't be as bad.
Yeah, hopefully, maybe it will be okay. Like, maybe it's not going to be like as crazy as we think it's going to be. But if crazy shit starts happening, I'm going to be like, oh my God, is this like Gilead all over again?
Oh,
like,
God.
Is that what's happening down there?
I tried watching Handmaid's Tale again. I started watching like the first episode. I was like, I can't watch this. This is too dark.
Yeah, it's too dark and too close to home right now.
But then, you know, some people are saying the actress, like, what's her name? That she is a Scientologist.
Yes.
So people are saying, oh my God, it's like how ironic is it that you are a Scientologist and like, first of all, you're like part of a cult. Yeah. And I don't really know what they believe in, like, you know, how they believe when it comes to like
women's rights.
Stuff.
Yeah.
But I imagine it's not the best. I don't know. But yeah, it's quite ironic there.
It is. I did hear that recently, actually. Yeah. Because they're doing season. I think it's the final season. It's going to come out soon.
It's still going on.
I don't know.
What a long ass show.
Well, because there was 5 seasons, and then the 5th one they did like a while ago. Because I watched it all.
Yeah, you love that show.
I was like, everyone had been talking about it, and I missed the boat, and then finally, like, I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch this show. Everyone's was talking about it. And then I got hooked, and but it's so fucking dark. Like, it was so like dark. So crazy. Yeah.
I don't know how you rewatch it, because I started trying to rewatch. I was like, I don't think I can rewatch this.
Yeah. And then I watched all 5, and then it's been a while. So I think they finished season 5 like a while ago, but they just haven't filmed season 6 yet. But it is on the docket. Like, they're supposed to film it because there's supposed to be a final. I think that's the final chapter.
Okay, interesting. Yeah. Anyways,
God damn.
Pretty scary, guys.
It is. It is.
Yeah. Good luck to all of us.
Yes, good luck to all of us.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Leave us your thoughts if you're watching on YouTube. Leave it in the comments.
We might get some hate for this one, Rose.
We might get some hate. I didn't hold back.
Oh no. God damn.
I never really hold back.
No,
so.
we don't. So
yeah, leave us some thoughts and thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it.
Yep. And guys, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, don't forget to hit follow. You get updated as soon as new episodes go live. And of course, guys, we talked about this earlier, but check out our Patreon, patreon.com/the SaVeg podcast. You get exclusive content on there. You get all content ad free, and you get the episodes a week before everyone else.
And make sure you check out the Canadian Rockies camping and hiking trip. That'll be linked below as well. If you want to join us, if you want to meet us in person and come camping and hiking with us.
Yay.
Spend a week with us in the beautiful Canadian Rockies.
Yeah.
Join if you want to stay in Canada after that.
Feel free.
Feel free. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you guys next week. Bye.
Bye.